What's up guys, Shawnthebro here, and today we're going to be going over part 3 of Super/Ultimate moves in our fighting game tutorial. So in this episode, it's going to be more of a relaxed episode. We've been going pretty hard with more complicated episodes. This time we're just basically going to allow player 2 to be able to perform the Super and Ultimate moves and perform them in a way where the camera pans to the correct spot and the animation looks good. And it doesn't matter if you're using keyboard or controller, but it'll always go to the right player depending on who used it. We will also be covering how to determine if the character is flipped. So if he's jumped on the other side of the enemy, then making sure the camera is in the correct spot there as well. So this is basically going to finish off the Super/Ultimate series for the time being. There could be more in the future, but this is basically everything that I wanted to... This encompasses everything that I wanted to get done for these 3 parts. So we might move on to other stuff for a little bit. We can always come back to it. Okay, so one quick thing. I do have cheats now that I can use, which will help me give full super to everybody. And doing this allows me to not sit here and mash the buttons repeatedly until I have enough super meter. So if you'd like to do this and like to implement some console commands and cheats, then I will post an iCard right here in the top right corner of the screen. You can click on it and check out how to implement cheats in any game, but specifically in the fighting game tutorial. Okay, so if I click cheat full super all, we both get full super meter. So just to catch you guys up, I had my mutant, and I can do this attack. It goes to him flexing, then he does an attack. If I land the attack, I then do a combo on the mutant. There we go. Excellent. Now, I will also be able to jump over the mutant, perform the attack from this angle, and whoops, I don't have full super. Perform the attack from this angle, the camera will be in the right spot, and the animation will also play correctly here. Then, player 2 will be able to come over to me, use his super, and then the super camera and the animation will be good. Lastly, if we jump over and the player 2 is flipped, he can use his super yet again if we have full super. It'll be in the right position, and the animation will play correctly. Those are the 4 cases you can have in a fighting game with positioning and all that. And we're going to go ahead and make that nice and clean, so you don't have to, you know, oh, if he's this character and facing this direction, it's got to be here. We're going to make it a lot nicer than that, so it's nice and easy and transfers between characters well. So let's get into it. First of all, let's fix the super camera. So if you guys remember, the super camera is specifically the camera when the mutant is flexing, not when he goes into his actor sequence, his little animation where he's beating the crap out of the other mutant. But this is specifically the camera where he's flexing right before he does his attack. Basically, his indicator that he's going to do an attack. So we've added quite a bit here, actually. Don't get concerned by this. This is the same thing copied 4 times with 2 values changed in 2 of these. So this one is the same as this one, and this bottom one is the same as this one. I'll show you why I'm doing it this way and what this can achieve for you. But don't get stressed. We're not adding a ton of stuff. You already should have 1 of these in here. We're just going to make it 4. Okay. So this was being done on Tick before, which really has no reason to be done there. It works being done there, of course. But honestly, we're just going to call an event when we swap to the super camera to get information. We're going to find out if we're player 1 or 2, and then we're going to find out if they're flipped or not. And depending on if they're player 1 or 2 and if they're flipped or not, we're going to perform this action. Now, to be fair, you don't really have to have all 4 of these. You could have 2 and just determine if you're setting the actor transform depending on if they're flipped or not. But I wanted maximum customization available. And to do that, you need actor transforms being set for player 1 reference and for player 2 reference based on if they're flipped or not. So that's why I've decided to do this. Basically, what this means for us is this logic that was on Tick and your super camera, everything on begin play is fine. I didn't change anything with that. But remove Tick. Let's make a new event. Right click and hit add custom event right here. Now this event, you call it whatever you want. I called mine swap to super camera. Swap to super camera view, excuse me. And we're going to call this event when we are ready to swap and see what this super camera is seeing. That way it's not updating constantly, and also we can pass it a character reference. That way we know if it's player 1 or player 2 using this move that we should be focusing on the super camera. This will help because we don't have to set specific player controllers to this camera other than to do the set view target with blend function. And thus, it doesn't matter if you're playing on keyboard or playing with multiple inputs or even playing online, this will work. Of course, there'll be more changes when we're playing online, so don't take that too literally. But the fact of the matter is we can use the same logic that we have set up for that, and it will work. So, in our mutant and BP, we were calling set view target with blend on our super camera reference when we went into this start super transition. Now, that was fine, but it was setting the view target with that, and Tick was keeping it up to date. We're changing that now to where we're going to call the swap to super camera view first. So we already have a super camera reference because we set up our super camera in the animation blueprint. So this variable right here, if you just drag him onto the screen, you will now be able to call that custom event. So swap to super camera view right here. Done. But he needs a character reference. Well, earlier on in the function, actually the previous node where we were setting can move the false, you can use the same reference if you'd like. Or just drag your mutant character reference on there again and use that. But this mutant character reference is the one that's using the attack, so we know that he's the one we want to focus on for the camera. So that's what the character reference is used for. Then everything proceeds as normal. We still set the view target with blend, we still launch the character, and we still reset variables. So we didn't change anything else with the function, we just added this in between can move being set to false and set view target with blend on the super camera. It's that simple. We don't have to do anything else in the animation blueprint. But make sure you do that. And now when we go into our super camera, go ahead and click on your event. And apologize for not doing this earlier. If you need to add your character reference here, go ahead and go to Inputs, hit New Parameter, type in character reference as the name, and then in your type, just find the type that you want. Since this super camera is not intended for the mutant, but for any character, and of course, different characters could have different values for where they want to go to. So this could be specific to the mutant. But for us, it's not. We're going to use this as our basic super camera that can work for any character we put in. So I want to find the character that it's going to work for. It's going to work for our base character class. So I go to our fighter template character and grab an object reference, and then now we have an input here. And that's when you can put in the mutant character reference. There you go. Okay, so in our super camera, what we were doing before was we were taking player 1 reference, checking if it was valid, and then getting the actor transform of player 1, and then setting the camera to be at these specific locations. That's fine. Sure, it's hard-coding them, but really it's not, because we have to have them hard-coded, let's be honest. If we want to have our super camera in a spot that is a specific distance away, we can't really do that without forcing it to be there, right? So that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But the issue would be if we were checking if we were flipped and then setting it to these values and checking in which player was who, we would be doing a lot of extra work. So what we're going to do is we have our values here. These are the same values I used last time, so I didn't even change them. Player 1 reference is -200, +125, +0, and my new transform rotation Z in the set actor transform was -30. Okay, so none of that changed. But what we're going to do now is do some checks to determine what character we are, what character we should be focusing on, and what values we want to use based on what direction they're facing. So, immediately when we come into the event, we're going to check our character reference, literally drag off of that and type equal equal, and I'll say equal object. Select this one. Grab your player 1 reference that we set up in begin play last time when we created the super camera. Check if they're equal. If they're equal, this means that this character reference is the player 1 reference. Or this character reference, the character that we should be focusing on, is player 1. Otherwise, it's player 2. So if it's true, it's player 1. If it's false, it's player 2. That's the first step. Then, now we know what actor we need to focus on, so where we need to move the camera to. But we also need to know if it's going to be they're facing left or if they're facing right, because that's going to determine where we want to position the camera in its rotation. So, again, this already existed. Player 1 reference is valid, and then we branch. But make sure, now that we're checking if it's player 1 or 2, if it's player 2, you grab the player 2 reference, check if it's valid, and then do a branch. If player 1 or player 2 is valid, we then go to this branch, which is checking if player 1 is flipped or player 2 is flipped. Now, because of the way my map is, mine is a little bit confusing. So don't get confused. I'll show you. For me, because of the way my models were and because of the way my map was, player 1 is actually considered flipped right now, and player 2 is not considered flipped. So for me, players that are facing right are flipped. Players that are facing left are not flipped. That can be confusing, and for you, it might be the opposite. In fact, for you, it should be the opposite. It was my fault. I downloaded them and imported them in the improper orientation, and thus I am working with this. At this point, I'm used to it, but I want to point this out. You're not doing anything wrong if you have it the other way. You probably actually did it right, whereas I did it incorrectly. But it doesn't really matter which one is flipped, just as long as you're aware of it. Okay? So, don't get confused. Go into the super camera, check if it's flipped. If you find that whatever you're doing is going to the wrong spot, then maybe you just have to flip these. Maybe is flipped was reversed for you as well. But, regardless, drag off of your player references, check if it's flipped. For me, if it is flipped, I do the code that we did last time. Okay, this is what we had in the super camera, that's it. However, if we're player 1 and we're not flipped, then I do this logic, which it's the same exact logic. Setting field of view of the camera is the exact same. The only thing I'm changing is the actor transform a little bit. So you can see my location Y, I add -125. You can also change this addition node to a subtraction node if you want. It's not really important one way or the other. Just make sure that it's either -125, so plus -125, or -125. Then, in your set actor transform, also you have to reverse your rotation Z, your new transform rotation Z. So, whereas it was -30 originally, I want to change it to be +30 in this case. What this does is this mimics the exact behavior above, but reverses the two most important elements. So the Y that we're changing is changing the horizontal position, and then this rotation is changing what end of the character we want to be facing. So what I mean by that is, when we use this attack normally, we've moved the camera to the right initially, and we rotated it to the right as well. But when we're facing the other direction, we want to move the camera to the left, and then rotate the camera to the left. And you can see we've done that in that case right there. So that's player 1 done. Now, luckily, player 2 is exactly the same, except we have to use player 2 reference in here. So if player 2 reference is valid, and they're flipped, then we go to this node. Otherwise, we go to this node. But funnily enough, they're the exact same logic, because once we're flipped, we still want to use the same values. Remember, if it's the same character, then it doesn't matter if it's player 1 or 2. It just matters if it's player 1 or 2 because we have to use the get active transform. Now, just for the record, you don't need all 4 of these. Again, you could use 2 and just use your character reference. It's that simple. You don't need 4 of these. But I allowed 4 of these because in case I wanted to change anything about them, for example, if you wanted to, instead of flipping your character's axis, okay, instead of just mirroring your character, if you wanted to have it so when your character turned, he was actually rotating and he actually was facing the correct direction at that point, like a real human would, you would want possibly different camera angles. They actually do this in Super Smash Brothers. So there's a genuine reason I've done this. I'm not saying you need to do this or that it's important. Like in this case, I'm not using it. But I've set the system up to do it that way in case you guys would like to. Regardless, if you're setting it up this way, just do the exact same thing that you did in these first 2, but change out player 1 reference to player 2 reference in both of these. So I'll go over it anyway. If it's flipped, we want -200, +125, +0, and then -30. But if it's not flipped, then we want -200, +-125, +0, 30. And there you go, guys. So that's how we get our super camera facing the right direction and right angle for whether we're player 1 or 2 and whether we're flipped or not. We're also going to go over the animation for the actual super/ultimate move where he's doing his little combo of punches, because we want to be able to perform moves regardless if we're player 1 or 2. We want to be able to attack the enemy and have the camera look good. So I haven't changed anything in the event graph of our mutant character BP, but we do need to go into our function for our mutant character BP, set up some logic, and we also need to add another sequence, the right side actor sequence. So feel free to go to your viewport so you can actually see what your sequence looks like. Okay, so say I'm here and I have my sequence open. This is how you can open that, by the way. Now, this is what we did last time. This was our camera. This is what it looked like while we were performing our super move. Great, that's excellent. But when we're player 2, we're facing the other direction. So even if the camera is okay position-wise, it might not be good angle-wise, or it might not be good in terms of the view we want to show when the character is facing that direction. So this genuinely doesn't care at all if we're player 1 or 2. This just cares what direction we're facing. So this will work for all characters, all players. Player 1, 2, 3, 4, like if you're doing a game with more than 2 fighter characters like Super Smash Bros. Or something like that, it'll work for all these guys. So don't worry about player 1 or 2, just worry about what direction we're facing. Now, you can duplicate this, however, I'd be careful. I don't know if it's something I was doing wrong and I couldn't find anything about it online, but duplicating this actor sequence, I could not unpair these then. Whenever I made a change to the right side actor sequence, I was making a change to the left side actor sequence as well, which I do not want. I want these to be separate. So what you can do is add another component, add another actor sequence, right here, call it right side actor sequence, and then it'll be empty. Then in your right side actor sequence, you can simply, you'll have nothing in here, right? So like if I were to make another one, I can hit open and tab, and you'll see that this is different. There's nothing in here. You can actually copy things over from another tab. So if I open and tab the right side actor sequence, I can copy the cine camera. In fact, I think I can copy the whole owner, but I can copy the whole cine camera, go into the actor sequence, open this in a tab, right click on the owner, and paste it in here. And now I will have everything from the right side actor sequence in here. Okay? So there you go. Now I'm going to delete this actor sequence out because I don't need it, but that's how you can copy over the contents from the left side actor sequence to the right side actor sequence. And this always goes red for me. I mean, don't worry about it. It's not really a big deal. I think when you open it in tab and compile, it's fine. But if you ever see that, it's not an issue. But make sure you're hitting open and tab every time you do this. Otherwise, you can just be editing the wrong sequence, so it can get confusing. But there you go. If you go ahead and copy your elements over, you can then change these values at your leisure. So all I did was for this camera, I'll zoom in a bit so you can see it. Instead of going, so the left side actor sequence, what it did is it actually was started at the right and then branched out to the right and moved back into the center. We did the exact opposite. So I went from starting at the left side to going to the center and then branching back out to the left again. Now, if you wanted to, again, that's what I did. I actually just made a new animation, basically. If you wanted to, since you copied the points anyway, you could actually just literally change the values here. So, like, if I wanted this to be the opposite, or the exact animation, but on the opposite side, which is probably what you want, then all you have to do is check the values at the key points and just reverse them. So, like, if I changed 180 units on the X here, and maybe I didn't want to do that, then I could do the opposite. And in our case, mainly, we're only messing with the Y-axis because we only really care about the horizontal view. I do end up bringing it down, which can stay the same, as you can see here. But specifically, like, right here, right? So when I go to the right here, if I wanted to go to the left, all I'd have to do is change this value. See how it went from 0 to negative 51? Well, I would change it from negative 51 to positive 51 for the left side actor, if that's what I wanted to do. So it's simple enough. I just wanted to show you that I technically made another animation when in reality you probably should just reverse the values of what you're going to change. Okay, so either way, once you have your two sequences, set the other sequence up to how you'd like it to be. And if you need help setting up the actor sequence, that's perfectly fine. I'll leave a link to the iCard to the second episode of this series where we actually did the sequence. But once you set that up, all we need to do is change something simple in our play super move sequence function that we had. So we had this function set up in the last episode where we had the function, and then we had self get player controller setting the view target blend, and we played the sequence. Great. No problem there. In fact, it was just called actor sequence before. I renamed this to be left side actor sequence. But all we need to do now is something very, very simple. We just need to check if this player is flipped, and then if they are, play left side actor sequence. If they're not, play right side actor sequence. Very, very simple. So since we are the mutant character BP, then is flipped is a boolean we can just access from our character. So literally type is flipped, and then check if it's true or not. This is the exact same, but then use the correct actor sequence to play the animation. There you go, guys, and that will work for every character regardless if you're player 1 or 2, so you don't have to worry about that. You just have to worry about what side you're on. And you can change these sequences to your liking. You can make them duplicates, or at least you can copy over the elements from one to the other and then switch the direction. But regardless, you'll be good to go. That's how you can make your characters, both of your characters, be able to use super and ultimate moves and have everything functioning properly. Well, anyway, guys, hopefully that helped you. In the next episode of the Fighting Game series, we'll probably be covering either Input Stacks Part 5, which would be the final input stack part for now, or we'll be covering using controllers in your game, because I've been getting a lot of requests for that lately. So we might actually cover that. Now, we did set up a lot of the systems to perform that automatically without even testing it, but there will be some tweaks we have to do, especially with since we'll have multiple player controllers. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. If this video helps you, please subscribe. It helps me more than anything else you can do for the channel, and it just lets me know that I'm doing a good job in helping you learn. If you did have any issues or any suggestions, feel free to join the Discord. There's a link down in the description. I can't put in an iCard, but we'll be happy to help you with any of the issues you had, as well as you can suggest any videos or anything like that you need, and I'll be happy to go over them. And lastly, guys, if you want to come support us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Shawnthebro27. I've been playing Dark Souls 2 lately, and we are going to fight the king pretty soon. And I've been doing, well, I've just finished Resident Evil 4 on Professional, and we're going to be starting Resident Evil 7 this Friday, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, that's all I got, guys, but thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Shawnthebro, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, friends.